Hello guys and welcome to Dedicated to Wrestling. This is going to be episode 2 of Slow News Saturday. If you're new to the series and don't know what we do here, it's basically all the wrestling news stories throughout the week that aren't really big stories and don't really deserve their own video. We're going to compile them all into one video on Slow News Saturday because, as we know, on Saturdays and Sundays, unless there's a pay-per-view on a Sunday, wrestling news is few and far between. Very rarely does any major breaking news happen. So we compile them all here so I can still keep you updated on to all the what I think are the most important stories in the world of wrestling at the moment. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start with Dolph Ziggler. Of course, on the last episode of SmackDown, Dolph Ziggler became the #1 contender for AJ Styles' WWE Championship by defeating Luke Harper and company. But the plan is that for Dolph Ziggler, it's not a major push whatsoever. It's just viewed completely as a stopgap. That's all it's going to be. When this feud is over with AJ Styles, he's going to be facing him in Chicago in just less than 2 weeks' time now, and AJ Styles will win that match. I can categorically 100% confirm that. Dolph Ziggler is just being used as a stopgap until John Cena gets back. He's expected to enter a program with AJ Styles, although there's a little bit of confusion because The Undertaker is also expected to enter a program of AJ Styles, so we're not quite sure how that's going to work out. All we really know is that Dolph Ziggler is just being used as a stopgap while we wait for John Cena and whenever The Undertaker is going to show up to return. Next up, we have Samoa Joe. Obviously, he lost his rematch for the NXT title against Nakamura in Australia in a cage match, which has now been shown on TV. Apparently his call-up is being delayed because he's dealing with an injury. He actually told the live attendants at a house show that he was dealing with an injury. How legit this is, we're not sure. No kind of major inside sources have reported on it and told us that it's this bad, it's not that bad. So who knows, it could be just a work to throw people off and then they're going to surprise debut him anytime now. We're not sure, but apparently, according to the man himself, Samoa Joe is currently dealing with an injury. And speaking of injuries, Zack Ryder unfortunately injured his knee on SmackDown this past week, winning a #1 contendership for the tag team titles against the Wyatt family with his fellow partner Mojo Rawley. Obviously looks like they're going to have to forfeit that title opportunity because Zack Ryder is going to be out for between 4 to 6 months, unless he makes a quicker recovery than usual. It's probably going to be for about 6 months, which is unfortunate because the Hype Bros and Zack Ryder himself has been getting a little bit of momentum. Zack's had a good year, obviously, won the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania, which was pretty much his crowning moment in the WWE. So hopefully he will be back before 6 months, but I'm hoping he doesn't lose too much of his momentum. He tweeted on it himself and said, "I've been through things way worse than knee surgery. I'll be back and I'll be better than ever," which is good to hear. He's remaining upbeat. Next on our list is a pretty funny one, to be honest. A leaked WWE notes for Raw house shows have been revealed, which is given to pretty much all the crew there, especially obviously the commentators who are commentating on the house shows. It's a list of notes, basically rules what talent aren't and are allowed to do. Some of them are as simple as, please make sure all talent do not go up on the ropes during the entrances. If they want to go up on the ropes, they need permission. Referees should not play any factor in finishes, which is like a far cry from the main roster where there's usually some referee controversy where he gets knocked out or something. And one of the most bizarre and hilarious rules here is that no one, and it means no one, is to do the yeah, boo stuff except John Cena. That's the exact words. No one is to do the yeah, boo stuff except John Cena. Now, if you don't know what that means, it's basically when a face is fighting a heel, the face is punching the heel, and you'll hear the crowd say yeah. The heel comes back and you'll hear boo, yeah, boo, yeah, boo. That kind of sequence. Apparently, unless John Cena is in that match, it's not allowed. How exactly they get the audience to make sure they don't do that, I'm not sure. Whether the talent are told beforehand, before they go out for house shows, that they can't even do any of those sequences, so the crowd aren't even tempted to do that. I'm not sure, but it's a really bizarre rule. I don't know. I don't even know why that would be a rule. Only in John Cena matches is that allowed. It's so stupid. It's so silly. But this is Vince McMahon we're talking about. So I mean, but still, even for Vince McMahon, that's really, really stupid. Oh, anyway, let's just move on from that weird rule and get into some Randy Orton news. Randy Orton's future has been discussed this week. He's been discussing it himself. There was, of course, rumours about Randy Orton taking a major part-time role in the WWE from now on. He recently did an interview on Tom Clark's Main Event podcast, and which to hopefully alleviate some of his fans, and me being one of them, he wants to wrestle for the next 10 years at least. He said, for the immediate future and shit, for 10 more years, I would love to if I'm able to wrestle. This is what I enjoy doing. The day of a pay-per-view when you're thinking of what you can do and then you get the payoff, the reward that night, it's a different animal. That live audience is a different animal. You grow as a WWE superstar and really appreciate the reactions we pull out of these fans, which is really nice to hear. He's been one of my favourites ever since he came into the WWE, and I was getting a little bit worried, of course, when he's had another daughter recently, that he may even retire early, perhaps, but it's really good to hear that he's planning to wrestle for 10 years or maybe even more. Really excited about that. Last but not least, Bray Wyatt. Not sure how much I can read into this, but it does get me excited being a big Bray Wyatt fan. He also did an interview to a Washington news source this week in which he says after winning the tag team titles, he is addicted to winning titles. This is what he had to say. This thing is addicting. Once you got one, you just want to take them all, being the titles, obviously. We rule SmackDown already. Why not just make it official? Because for some reason, when someone sees you walking around with this, whether they've had it before or whatever, you get some kind of newfound respect. And I think that's what I'm after anyway. I'll just take one from The Miz, because that should be easy. And then AJ Styles. There's three of us. Then anytime you bring back Braun, you bring back Rowan, you bring back the new ones, it's an unstoppable, impenetrable fortress. If we can steamroll in ahead, who knows what will happen. This makes me so hyped because the Wyatt family from the get-go, I would have loved to have seen an angle where they completely dominate whatever roster they're on and take all the titles. This complete domination leading up to something like at WrestleMania where perhaps the general manager, even the owner, Vince, has to get his biggest guys together to try and stop the Wyatt family from completely seizing control of WWE. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been an angle already because it just seems gold in the making. But this would be so good. Like a feud against the Miz would be easy money. I think you'd have to turn Bray face for that feud. It kind of borders on face anyway. Like the guy hardly ever gets booed. Can't even remember the time when he got heavily booed last. The crowd love him and they would love him to turn face. AJ Styles, like as much as I love AJ Styles, would not be mad if he eventually lost his championship to Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt deserves that WWE championship at some point. I'm really hoping 2017 will be the year of Bray and the Wyatt family because God knows they deserve it after some of the shit they've been booked through these past years since coming up. They really do deserve it, and it could be a really, really hype angle if they get it right and if anything comes of it. But pinch of salt, pinch of salt. It was only an interview, so you never know what can come from this. that is going to be it for this week's episode, guys. Episode 2 of Slow News Saturday. Of course, we'll be back with this next Saturday. Don't know why I stumbled with that, for episode 3. And if there's any, I don't usually put out a video tomorrow because Sunday is usually dead in terms of wrestling news, but of course Roadblock is tomorrow, so if there is any breaking big news ahead of Roadblock, I will not hesitate to bring that to you. You have no fear in that. This has been dedicated to wrestling, guys. Until next time.